So this is what's going on. The 50th anniversary of Martin Luther King Jr.'s March on Washington. This is Martin Luther King Jr. Park in Buffalo, New York. And this is John Washington, the hottest man in Buffalo. Look at this.
Thousands of people gathered in the National Mall to cash in on the promise of freedom our founding fathers so eloquently described in the Constitution. It was the largest civil rights rally in history. The March for Jobs and Freedom was the climax of a movement that had been building for 400 years. 100 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, in the midst of Jim Crow and segregation, union leaders, clergy, and civil rights leaders dramatized the status quo in juxtaposition to the rhetoric of the American dream, of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The event is remembered for Dr. Martin Luther King's monumental "I Have a Dream" speech. History has oversimplified the event and the speech. Dr. King's dream was much more than for little black boys and little black girls to play with little white boys and little white girls.
Right.
His dream was to create a beloved community of social justice for all his people. His dream was for America to make good on its promise to all men that they are created equal. 50 years later, it seems that Dr. King's dream has been deferred. Michelle Alexander has outlined the inner workings of a new Jim Crow, the mass incarceration of black youth in our country. Now 70% of the American prison population is black, and most of them are under the age of 30. Black men and children are seen as a menace to society. The Harvard Implicit Association test shows that 70% of all people have a preference for white faces.
Right.
Last year, Trayvon Martin's death, and this year, George Zimmerman's acquittal, had the nation up in arms.
Right.
But who was to care for the 313 other black men
Right.
who were murdered by police officers on state payroll?
Right.
They shot Ramarley Graham in the back 7 times in front of his grandmother
Wow.
because he had a dime bag.
What?
They shot Kamani Gray because he was pulling up his skinny jeans, and an undercover thought he might have a gun. They chased him 7 blocks and gunned him down in his doorway. And those 2 cops are still walking a beat. Today is also the 60-year anniversary of the death of Emmett Till.
No.
So I ask you today, what has changed? Since 1963, there have been many so-called victories for civil rights. But when you see the culture of injustice we live in, again, what do you see that has changed? It seems we've all ignored Dr. King's warnings and fallen victim to the intoxicating opiate of gradualism. We have deferred full payment of the dream in hopes that more black people in positions of power would result in progress. Relative to the goal of progression, this generation has seen minimal change directed at a small group of black men who are able to benefit from the struggles and suffering of all those that came before.
Right.
It is becoming more and more evident that black faces in high places does not mean an end to racism.
Right.
It is time for us to take an honest look at how far we've come since 1963. Since COINTELPRO murdered and divided the civil rights movement that desired to continue in the eternal vigilance Dr. King spoke of. We have been saturated with reformist logic, latent with everything that King's dream was against. We can no longer allow reformists to control our thought process and continue to feed us this opiate of progress. We need to give up our egos and work to realize the dream of Dr. Martin Luther King. The spirit of the civil rights movement is not dead, but has been hidden by a veil of security that is perpetuated by our black politicians. In North Carolina on Moral Mondays now, we see more and more people getting arrested, facing the injustice of immigration reform. We can only hope that on the anniversary of this historic event, we can resurrect the unwavering demand for freedom and justice for all that Dr. King lived and died for. Quote from the end of the speech, he says, "With this faith, we will be able to hew out a mountain of despair, a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of a nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, pray together, struggle together, and go to jail together to stand up for freedom, knowing that one day we'll be free." Amen. That dream was not for us to get elected together.
No.
That dream was not for us to trust a small group of people to act out what we want. That dream was for people to act in civil disobedience of injustice until that injustice was changed.
Right.
And Dr. King never gave up on that.
No.
But all of us here have succumbed at some point to saying, well, voting is enough. Listening is enough. Understanding is enough.
Not true.
No.
So I ask you, just like Langston Hughes did in his poem Harlem, what happens to a dream deferred?
Right.
I think it gets corporatized, homogenized, prophetized, politicized. But as long as we all understand what this dream really is, it cannot die. Amen.
Okay. Great job. Very good speech.
There is a roof here.
What?
I want to shock a few people here.
No.
Martin Luther King was a communist.
Whoa.
Yes, I said it. Martin Luther King was a communist. Martin Luther King believed in the principles of anarchy, of self-determination and definition. He was a radical union organizer.
Right.
He was not just a symbol of
That's
a civil
why they
rights
killed him.
movement, but a champion of justice. He once said, if you want to call me extremist, I consider that an honor. Because
Whoa.
Jesus was an extremist.
Right on.
He challenged the Christian clergy in the South that wanted to see him rot away in that Birmingham jail. And yet today, we look at these people as our enemies. We say political parties are our friends. We say we're Democrat, we're Republican. Don't watch Fox News. Don't watch MSNBC. Read. Understand what is going on. Because until that happens, the politicians who came here and thought they wasted their time because they weren't allowed to speak will continue to manipulate you into thinking that this dream has been achieved. And it is time for us to wake up. Stop letting these people put Dr. King's face on their dreams and their success.
Right.
Because I'm telling you, Dr. King's dream has nothing to do with political office.
That's right.
And if you think it does, you need to read what the man wrote.
Right.
You need to understand the dream and not just think about those same two little lines about little black boys and little white girls coming together and playing. Because he said, I don't want my dream to be black people can move from a smaller ghetto to a larger ghetto. And yet we've accepted that. We think that's progress. It's pasted all over Buffalo. We've made progress. Another thing Dr. King said is progress is a precarious position. Because that's when you don't know if you've done something or not. And I'm going to tell everybody here, we haven't done enough. Amen. So if you're ready to do something,
That's true.
this city is full of organizations ready to support you, inform you, and organize you. And if they're not enough for you, then organize one yourself.
Yeah.
But that is the spirit of Dr. King. So when you go home today and you watch Barack Obama talk about the progress and the change and the hope and moving forward, I hope you realize that that is only meant for about 1% of the population of our country. It's not meant for you, and it's not meant for us. And if it ever will be, it is up to us and no one else. Thank you. Is there anybody else here who would like to speak about what this moment means? All right, we'll start with Nate. Sorry, I saw him first, then Mike, and Reverend, and Heron. And then after that, we'll ask the question again, because I can't remember that many names.
Thanks, John. That's
cops.
I just want to make a
FBI
couple
over here.
announcements. Tomorrow at Burning Books, which is at 420 Connecticut Street, we have organized by Buffalo Prison Abolition Reading Group, which you can get involved in. There's a hunger strike going on in the Pelican Bay, which is a prison in California, which is like extremely horrible conditions. And there's been it started off with 30,000 men who were under hunger strike, and it's still continuing. It's not day 53. So if you could come out tomorrow at 7 p.m. We greatly appreciate. Burning Books is having its 2nd anniversary, which is going to be September 11th.
Whoa!
And it's the anniversary of Attica Uprising, right in the middle. And Richard X, who's one of the Attica brothers, is going to come speak at that. September 8th, Peter Gelderloos is coming to speak. So if you guys could come to any of these events, we greatly appreciate it. And yeah, we appreciate all the events at Martin Luther King. And I also just wanted to say there's going to be a No War in Syria rally that's going to be on Sunday. Someone know the time at that?
I think it's 1 o'clock in Niagara Square.
1 o'clock in Niagara Square. It's not the best time, but we don't want any war in Syria. Martin Luther King, my favorite speech of his is why I'm opposed to the war in Vietnam, which is like, I mean, it just spells out all the reasons. And believe me, today, Martin Luther King was alive, he would not be going for any warmongering. What's going on right now? Libya, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan. One of the political prisoners, Sunyata Kohli, once told me, he said, I think they needed a black man in office to bomb Africa, and you know, and that's what's going on. You know, they're bombing all over the place, and if we go into Syria, it's going to be so much worse. You know, we have to put a stop to it once. And so, if you come out Sunday 1 p.m. and thanks to everybody who spoke, it was really great.
My name is Reverend Gerard Williams from Unity Fellowship Church. Recently relocated to 367 Delaware, downstairs from our other sister organization, BAI. If you need to know more about who we are, you can join us. Feel free to join us every Sunday at 12 noon. We'll be happy to see you. What I would like to leave with you today is real simple, real succinct, because I know it's hot and we're tired, we're ready to go. When I was a child, I thought as a child, I spake as a child. But when I became a man, when I became a woman, I put away childish things. Amen. And so I don't know why you may have thought you came out here today, but I'd like to charge you that you came out here to hear very clearly and call to action. And that call to action is because whether you know it or not, we are at war for the soul of this country. And that is basically a war of deciding on whether or not we're going to be a country of us and them, or a country of we. And so you who are here today have an opportunity to make a decision on whether or not you're going to grow up and wake up. Why? Because you are fearfully and wonderfully made, just like you are. You're not here for the bling bling, you're not here for the fashion, you're not here for the great car and all of the other things. You are here for a greater calling that the divine, whatever you call the divine, might show through you. Why? Because any war that's won is won by soldiers, disciplined, committed soldiers. And you have now an opportunity to decide whether or not you want to be that kind of soldier that the God that shows up in you can count on to open up your mouth and declare that this shall be a land of justice and equality. Because, you know, God is on the side of justice and equality. You're all aware of that, right? Amen. And so when you're in that fight, you're not in that fight alone, but you're in that fight with God, whatever you call God, on your side. That's why we're here today. That's why we commemorate this day. That's why we commemorate those individuals that organized that march, because they knew what we should know today, that God is on the side of justice. God is on the side of equality. God is on the side of healing, and God is on the side of all that He has created. There is no he, there is no she, there is no black, there is no white, there is no gay, there is no straight in God. There is only that which God has created, and God has decided that it is fabulous just the way it is. And you need to wake up and see yourself as God sees you. You need to be able to look in the mirror and say, I can see the face of God. I don't have to look like that one. I don't have to speak like the other. I don't even have to agree like them. But that's still my brother and sister. And in this war, the end result is recognizing that we cannot be whole until we're all whole. Amen. Amen there. We can't be healed until we're all healed. We cannot prosper until all prosper.
Amen.
So what will be your decision when you leave here today? Will you, whatever it is you're going to think, you have now an opportunity to step into your real divine purpose. And whether you're a believer or not, everybody's got a divine purpose. Because your being here is not an accident. It is not a mistake. You are not an other. But you were called by the universe for just that, a divine purpose. Decide today what that's going to be. Will it be the same old, or will you begin to see God in a new and empowering way? Will you begin to see God in you, not just in you, but in your brothers and sisters, in the male, in the female, in the black, in the white, in the gay, and in the straight? And I just want to share that with you. Grace and peace be with you.
We have a table over there for Buffalo Save the Kids. We're an organization dedicated to stopping the school-to-prison pipeline. That is the new focus of our civil rights movement, to defend the rights of our youth that are being taken away before they even understand they have them. So if you really want to get involved in this fight, please join us and come over here and get some information.
Thank you, John, for letting me speak. Thank you for organizing this. It's amazing and important that we come together and remember these kinds of moments, these historical moments where we have a chance to look back and figure out where we are in a point in time. And I'm so glad what the Reverend was just saying. A lot of what is in me to say was put out right there. It seems to me this is a special time. People were saying just last year that the world was going to end, right? 2012 was supposed to be the last year.
Yeah.
But what it was a transition. The times are changing, right? We're in a new age. So what is the challenge in the next age? You know, we've been going through cycles of history where the same problems keep coming around again and again. What's the real solution? Today I was in class. I have the privilege of teaching philosophy at Canisius College. And we were doing social and political philosophy. And I raised this question to the smart kids at Canisius. And I wonder if you guys can answer this question. When was it that every white man got a chance to vote? When was that?
Different states, it was different times.
That's right. It wasn't the same place for every place. But there was a moment in history when the stragglers got brought along. When was that time?
I don't know. I've been wondering that too, because they never talk about it.
All right, I know they don't talk about it.
No,
they don't talk about
they
it.
always got to vote.
We fought a revolution, right? And after the revolution, liberty was born, right? And all of a sudden we lived in a free country. But in that free country, under 10% of the people had the right to vote, because only property owners had the right to vote.
Right.
And it was piecemeal. Little by little, different states opened it up and made it a little bit more. But when did all white men get the chance to vote? When black men got the chance to vote.
Oh, really?
That was when the stragglers got brought along.
Anybody born in the U.S.
The point that I want to bring out in that is that we only really get fundamental change when the people on the bottom are brought up.
Right.
And the biggest problem with where we're at in history right now, it seems to me, is that there are these little incentives, like John was pointing out. There are these incentives that make us all sell out. You know, when there's times to stand up and really put yourself at risk, no one wants to. Everyone has a little something that they're holding on to. They don't take risks. This is one little thing that's driving me nuts with our society right now. It's the situation of young people. The fact that we have such a division between older people and younger people. The fact that we're putting more and more of our children in jail. The fact that more and more of our children aren't getting educated. It's unacceptable. Why? Why is it happening? It seems to me we don't have a commitment to affecting the lives of our young people. So I want to throw out a challenge. I've been raising this as an idea to different people. I've been talking to politicians about it. I'd like to see it happen, but the only way I can see it can happen is if everyone actually gets involved, because real change only happens when everyone gets involved in it. We used to have neighborhood schools. Okay, people used to be able to walk from where they live to go to a place to get educated. You have your home, you have people who you trust and love right there, and you should be able to go not too far from where your home base is to another place where you can trust and you know you're going to be loved and cared for. That doesn't really exist anymore. We have neighborhoods where kids don't play in the street, right? Where there's no safe places anymore for our young people. Now, that can't be blamed on young people. That's the responsibility of us adults. So my challenge is, let's change that situation. Let's open the schools. It's great having public education, but we have these big buildings that aren't being used after a certain hour.
Right.
And let's open the churches. We have these beautiful churches all over Buffalo.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them are just awe-inspiring. They're so lovely. But what the hell good are they if they're just standing empty?
Amen.
They should be resources for the people who we need to be loved and cared for and healthy and strong. We need to change our society, and the only way we're really going to do it is if we have an all-hands-on-deck attitude about this. So I want to challenge y'all. You know, we have a bunch of ministers here, and many of you go to church. Go to your minister and your pastors. Ask them, what are we doing for kids in the neighborhood? We don't have to wait for any politician to change anything. If we demand things, the politicians all of a sudden come to us. We have to wonder, why is it that when Occupy was in a square right in front of City Hall, why is it that no politician that works in that building came out and talked to us? Why? Sister Betty Grant did. She's not here right now. If any politician would have stuck around, it would have probably been Betty Grant. But I noticed they were here and now they're gone.
Oh, really?
So I guess that's all I really need to say. Open up the schools, open up the churches. It's not complex. Just do what you can do. Have 2 hours a week where kids can get tutoring. Just make sure it happens. Give parents choices to make a difference. Don't judge them. Give them choices. Put out a helping hand. If we can do that, we can make this work. We can change.
So my name's Vicki Ross, and I do peaceful conflict resolution as a consultant for the Western New York Peace Center and the Interfaith Peace Network. And I wrote down a couple of quotes, and I have to mention this one first, because Dr. King, Reverend Dr. King said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." Now, actually, Buddha also said, hatred cannot be conquered by hatred, only by love alone. Hatred can only be conquered by love. So, and all the faiths tell us what we need to do, but somehow we have that trouble doing it. He also said, a nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense, and he did use that word, defense, or whatever we're using, to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual doom. So that also, here is our problem again. When we're spending more money, I don't know what that means, right? I think that's relatively harmless, but the drones and the militarism, the military adventurism, the excuses for fighting that are not defense related, they persist. They're worse than ever. Our government's war crimes. And he also said, our lives begin to end the day that we are silent about things that matter. So here we are, and thank God for all of you. And that is what we're here for, and we have to be making every effort, saying what needs to be said, standing where we need to stand, taking the courageous step that so many have taken, or so many will take, are yet to take. Because we do have some tokenism, and we do have people who are treated unequal, and they may be black or brown, or they may be in Afghanistan, or they may be people, gay people, or people of color, or women, still in some way. So we are far I have a dream too. If I could be so bold to say, I do have a dream. I think it's the same dream. That we can live in love together. That we will respect and share and love each other and do the things that we know are right and find the courage to do that. So, inshallah, God willing, and with all of our working together, we can do that. Thank you very much.
Next we have Ina Ferguson from Citizen Action of the Alliance for Quality Education. Are you fired up, Ina? I'm fired up! Take it no more!
Are we fired up? Yeah! Can't take it no more. We fired up? Yeah! Can't take it no more. My name is Ina Ferguson. I am a stepmother of 5, a grandmother of 12, and a godmother of 7. I am with the Alliance Quality Education, with Citizen Action, a retiree of 1199 SEIU. My union! My biggest passion is about education. Education is very important. And our country needs to get fired up about education. Without education, our children cannot be successful. Our black students, our Latino students, our immigrants are being subjected to being pushed out of schools and headed for the end of school, the pipeline, to prison. Right. Every day, a child is being suspended across this country. Right. You suspend one child, it's a one step toward the jail. That's right. I'm here to stop it. I need a group of everybody to get fired up about our children. Without education, they will not be successful. People have fought, died, and cried for our children. So please come and fight for our children. Education! 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 Thank you. Fight the power! Fight power!
Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Be loud. So, like John introduced us, I am from Fight the Power, and this is my father from the All African People Revolutionary Party. And our job here is to tell the truth, to remind everybody here about the truth of King, the truth of that period, and the truth that we are living today. As we've seen with these signs behind us, we know that King's dream has not been fulfilled. His dream of equality and justice for everybody has not been fulfilled. Now, in order for us to actually achieve that dream, it might be a good idea for us to reach back to 1963, 1964, and see what the landscape was like during that period. Now, we all remember the pictures of King at the March on Washington, right? Now, everybody tend to, pay attention to King, his hands up giving the speech. But what people often don't pay attention to is the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who were out there at the march and back at home supporting him. King would have been nothing. None of those people there would have been nothing without those hundreds of thousands of people, working class, poor, underclass, unemployed, women, students, who came out there and did the hard work of supporting that movement. They were the ones who did the voter registration drive. They're the ones who were being murdered by the Ku Klux Klan and other racist vigilantes for just trying to get their human rights. So we need to remember that as much as we should honor our elder King for what he did for our people and what he gave to us, we must not forget that we can't idolize him. We can't just sit and put him up on this pedestal and act like none of us reached that point. If anything, what King would have wanted for us to reach past what he did, to have a dream greater than what his was. And what we need to do today is find what that dream is and unite to achieve it. And in particular, for people who, my birthday's tomorrow, I'm about to turn 24, right? I consider myself fairly young, and for anybody that's my age, a little bit older and a little bit younger, we are the key to that new dream. We're the ones who have to live with this world if we don't fix it. If this world doesn't get better, we're the ones who have to stay here and live the consequences of it. Our elders have done their job.
They've done their work trying to keep our community together. Yeah. But it's now our turn to step up to the plate. It's our turn to step up and move on it. If you are 25 or under and you are not organized, you're not going to meetings, you're not looking at the news, you're not doing any political activity, I'm sorry to say, but you're useless. Honestly. If you are not doing something for your people, for people in general, even if it's just reading the news every day, then you need to step your game up. With that, I'm going to pass it on to my father.
We had to back that up. Like the brother said, for those who don't know, my name is Ahuru Musa, and like I say, I'm an organizer with the AAPRP, but I'm also organized with the Malcolm X March Diary Committee.
Right on.
I think my son touched based on most of what I would say, it was most that was, but I think one other segment that he left out was the women that were in the civil rights movement. If it wasn't for the women, how many of y'all know Ellen Baker? Raise your hand. Very few. It was Ellen Baker that helped organize SNCC. And it was, like my son said, it was SNCC that initiated the sit-ins that became part of the civil rights movement. Like I say, it was the students that were the militant ones. In Kingdom, they finally joined on to them. Remember SCLC, the NAACP, Urban League. They decided to join in, but they knew that the youth was ready. And they was ready to get things done. So I think it's important that we all, like my son said, remember that in reality, like you say, American dream has been our nightmare. I'm 52 years old. I was born in 1960. So I got to see it all. I got to see him, like I say, kill Malcolm. I got to see him kill King. I got to see the story of the Panther. See, that we have to remember what happened after the march. After the march, they blew up the church in Birmingham, where my parents are from. After the march, they were killing people on the highway. After the march, you know, they did everything to stop that from coming to be. And so, like you said, when we find ourselves, they say it really was a dream. But the reality is that America is like apartheid. Y'all remember we fought against apartheid? Y'all remember 80 years. Apartheid gone, right? But the Africans are still poor. The Europeans still control the community. So what I'm saying in a nutshell is 50 years later, we still ain't got no jobs. We still ain't got no freedom. So like my son said, the job continues. I think that what happens that a lot of people start struggling. That was struggling. When I'm saying a lot of people, I'm talking about my generation. We bought into the dream. You know what I'm saying? And by buying into the dream, we stopped struggling. So we never taught our kids how to struggle. And that's why they're sitting around here today in front of the computers, in front of the TV, not knowing what's going on, how it got here, and where they going. Because nobody never told them the story of the struggle. Now my son out here, because I told him the story. I not only told him the story, I lived it. He remembers me. He remembers Kwame coming through our house, you know, organizing. So I think that what we forgot to do was, like you say, now it's up to the youth of today to do what historically have always done. The youth are the spark to the revolution. Did y'all hear me? I said the youth are the spark to the revolution. That don't mean they're going to carry it through. They can't carry it through by themselves, but they will spark it. All you got to do is read your history. Like I said, it was Huey and them who built the Panthers. It was Kwame and them that built SNCC. And I say it was the youth that gave the militancy to the civil rights movement. And today, what we're trying to do in AAPRP and the Malcolm X Marcus Garvey Committee is to organize the masses. We're no longer dependent on no one leader. We depend on the people, like they always did. And only the people won't carry you through. Once we stop waiting for Messiah to come and save us, like a lot was thought with Obama. They thought he was going to come and save us, but he didn't. Matter of fact, he worse than Bush was, if you read the record. I mean, let's be serious. In a couple of days, you're ready to go back to war. Geronimo Bay or whatever in Cuba, It's still there. You know what I'm saying? So it's not going to be no savior that's going to come and save you. It's not going to be just looking at this statue every day and thinking of the fond memories of King and what he did. The question is, what you want to do? What you going to do when you leave here? Are you going to go mobilize, organize, and agitate like they did in 1963? When they left from Washington, they didn't go home and sit down. They went and organized and mobilized and agitated. And that's why you saw some change, but not enough. You know what I'm saying? But just like everything, you have to learn from history. You have to study history so we don't make the same mistake before. So this time we're going to organize mass organization.
Not just one
so,
1,000 kids.
Exactly. Not just one Malcolm, 1,000 Malcolm. So they can't kill all of us, and they definitely can't kill the masses.
All right.
And I want to thank my brother for inviting us out here for this day, which I think is very important. But like I said, when you commemorate King, also commemorate the masses that were out there with him. Commemorate all those that died on their way to there and that died afterward, not just him. Once again, I want to thank all y'all.
All right.
I just want to make one more point. We had Marcus Garvey Day recently. For those who don't know, Marcus Garvey was a great African, had the biggest organization in the world of Africa. But anyway, out of that meeting, we decided to get together to organize the African United Front. And what we're trying to do is get all the African organizations, NAACP, the Urban League, the Nation of Islam, to come together so we can organize and solve our problems. Stop waiting for others to solve our problems. We can solve ourselves. We got all the resources at our disposal, but we're not coordinating. You know what I'm saying? We got to start coordinating our efforts and bringing our resources together, and then we can move forward. Now mind you, this is not exclude our allies. You know what I'm saying? We're going to work with others, but like Malcolm told us, until we unify among ourselves, we can't unify among others. Until we begin to love ourselves, we can't love others. We practice brotherhood with all those that want to, sisterhood with all those that want to practice with us, but we first got to get among ourselves first. So thank you.
Thank you. Next I want to introduce, we're not talking about Black August. Why? Black August is a month to commemorate the history of black struggle against slavery, repression, and discrimination. The first great event of Black August was the Haitian slave rebellion, which set free the people in Haiti from slavery and white domination. The historic speech of Dr. King, which we have just heard brilliantly recited, was also performed during Black August. But the formal beginning came with the murder in prison of our comrade and brother George Jackson, a political prisoner who was in prison for being a member of the Black Panther Party, who was framed up on charges of killing a police officer. He died in prison at the hands of the guards. Shortly thereafter came the Attica Prison Rebellion, when black and white prisoners came together and struggled commonly for better conditions inside prisons. This is an issue that strongly resonates today and cannot be let to fall by the wayside. Today we are witnessing mass incarceration of our youth, especially youth of color. Today there are in prisons more people of color than were ever enslaved in the United States. Today the prison rebellion, the hunger strike, are analogous to the slave rebellions of old. They have the same character, the same goals. There's a massive war on black and brown youth in this country, and our unity is necessary to combat it every step of the way. There is, and there always has been, the notion in this country that the so-called black crisis is a myth, that the problem is internal, with their own communities. The International Action Center rejects this notion.
All right.
It is oppression foisted upon them by our racist government, our racist police, our racist courts and institutions, which were designed for their oppression. So we support every single movement
for black liberation, for equality, for freedom. And those struggles are more necessary now than ever. I apologize, I didn't write anything.
All right. Doing pretty good, man.
Thank you. Now, the International Action Center is proud to have been invited here today. And I would like to let you all know that we have meetings every Monday, which we encourage any and all to attend. Our office is on 367 Delaware, on the upstairs. You can find us on Facebook. I encourage you all to do so. And I wish you all solidarity and peace. Thank you.
What will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our country. 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves whose lives have been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, we must face the tragic fact that the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is languished in the corners of American society and finds himself an exile in his own land. So we have come here to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we have come to our nation's capital to cast a check when the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. They were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was the promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this check insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check. Yeah. A check that has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. So we have come here today to cash this check, a check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksand of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all God's children. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. This sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. And those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam and will now be content to have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundations of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. But there is something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to generate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force, and the marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to a distrust of all white people, for many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to recognize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny. And they have come to recognize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone. And as we walk, we must make the pledge to always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied. Never. As long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality, we can never be satisfied. As long as our bodies, heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot find lodging in the motels of the highways or the hotels of the city, we cannot be satisfied. As long as the Negro's basic mobility is from a smaller ghetto to a larger one, we cannot be satisfied. As long as our children are stripped of their selfhood and robbed of their dignity by signs stating for whites only, we can never be satisfied. As long as the Negro in Mississippi cannot vote, and a Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice goes down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of excessive trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive Go back to Mississippi.
All right.
Go back to Alabama. Go back to South Carolina. Go back to Georgia. Go back to Louisiana. Go back to the slums and ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Yeah. Let us not dwell in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends, that even though we must face the difficulties of today and the frustrations of tomorrow, however difficult the moment, however trying the hour may be, I still have a dream.
Tell them about the dream.
It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a desert state, sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream. That one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor, whose lips are presently dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. One day, right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls and walk together as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream. That one day, every valley shall be exalted. Every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plains, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the dangling discord of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day. This will be the day when America will be able to sing with new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Of thee I sing, land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, then this must become true. So let freedom ring.
Yeah.
From the Virginia hilltop of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring. From the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring. From the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring. From the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring. From the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that. Let freedom ring from Stone Mountain, Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi. From every mountainside. Let freedom ring. And when this happens, when we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last.